Were we episode 3?
Episode 3.
Episode 3. Welcome back.
All right, Oconee People and Perspectives, episode 3 with Kathy and me. She could have said Randy and me. It would have been pretty cool.
Sorry. I'll do it next time.
But here we are. Less road noise, still road noise. That's the price you pay for development. That's the price you pay for bringing them $40 to $70 an hour jobs into the county. We're just not going to be anywhere where there's no noise.
Nope.
But thank you guys for watching at least 3 episodes.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about annexation. We're going to talk about 50-foot right-of-ways, and we're going to talk about closing down the Limestone College, and then whatever other rabbit trails we want to. Oh, squirrel! I'm just kidding. But anyways, that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get started. Let's talk about annexation in Walhalla.
Yeah.
Kathy, you've had some pretty good conversations this week.
Yeah. I live in city limits, and I rather enjoy it. We chose to live in city limits. My husband grew up in city limits, so I don't see the big problem. I understand, some people like to live outside city limits because they may farm or they may do this or that, an activity that, requires living outside of city limits. The tax is a little higher. I don't think it's a lot higher. You have the utilities, which people, are complaining about the water because the water wasn't kept up, but they're trying to upgrade the water system, the sewer system, which takes time because if something's been let go for decades, you can't just wave a magic wand and replace it all at one time. So they're working on that. It's a process.
I try to eat the right stuff. I try to hydrate. I try to stretch.
We're gonna have a little background noise.
But you can't hydrate without city water.
You can't hydrate without city water.
But I don't particularly like the idea of living in a city.
Yeah.
That's why that I bought a home that was 40 minutes from anything. It'll be a while before the city gets to me. I've lived in cities. I've lived in big cities. I've lived in small towns. I've lived in the country. I've lived on a boat. One bedroom had 150 people living in it on that aircraft carrier. It was awful. I don't like being close to people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, cities are going to grow. Cities are going to expand. And Walhalla has not grown. It's not expanded or nothing since the 70s, really. And that's unfortunate because without the expansion, you don't get that revenue and you don't get that, you can't fix the infrastructure. So unless you're going to have Ben and Eric or Erica and Ben or whatever from Home and Garden TV come and buy the whole city and do with it what they want to do with it, which is not going to be what anybody that lives there wants to do with it.
No.
The community has to recognize that and go, look, we haven't paid any tax increases in the last decade, so this is the problem.
Right.
You had some real bad managers in the past that said, oh, we'll do water, and that's how we'll make the money to provide for the town, selling water.
Well, I think
that didn't work because you didn't save any money for your infrastructure, and now everything's imploded.
I think a lot of it has been, and I think maybe this has been on the state level too. The goal has always been to keep the taxes super low to keep people happy.
Well, if
and even in our county, just keep the taxes low because that's what makes people happy, and that isn't necessarily what is best, because people don't necessarily get what they need if the taxes are low. You get crumbling roads, you get bad water, you get bad sewer or failing sewer, and you don't get the services you need because there's not enough money for those things.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I've traveled, and just 2 years ago, my daughter and I, we went to Las Vegas during her spring break at Clemson. She wanted to go to Vegas. I had a need to go out there. We pulled a trailer for a friend out there and dropped it off. But what we recognized was when we drove through red states, we had really poor infrastructure and really bad roads. But we got to a blue state, the roads were nice, the infrastructure was good, everything was working out. And you know, you want to be conservative and you want to not pay a lot of taxes, you want to have small government. But when you do that, then you might as well know that you're going to be living in the wild, wild west. Because without money and tax revenue, you're not going to have nice things for everyone. So these folks that don't want to live in the city of Walhalla and contribute to that don't need to be complaining when there is no Walhalla anymore.
Right.
And then what? When Walhalla fails, who's going to give them water? Have we thought about that?
Well, I don't know. There was someone in the paper a couple of years ago when we started having these conversations who said, oh, well, you know, because I said something about the water at the time, because at the time we had an issue with sewer in our neighborhood. And the kind of a smart aleck remark was, well, if you don't like it, you can dig a well and you can get a septic tank. And at the time, it made me angry. But that is a point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like you can move out of the city limits and you have the option to get a well and to get a septic tank. You have options. You can do those things if you're not wanting to wait for them and give them the time to rebuild and to get behind this thing. I mean, it is an option. It is a workable option. It is a doable option as a homeowner. I mean, and then you don't have to pay that. You don't have to, it's a workaround.
But you know, a lot of social media. I mean, that's what we're doing this for social media. We're doing, but you got to remember when you're looking at the comments on social media and stuff, you got people that are talking about, I don't want to annex Walhalla, but they're living in their sister's trailer and ain't paid rent and don't know what about the taxes or anything for
in
the last
lower
two
part
or three,
of the county.
two or three decades. They're just full of shit. They're just running their mouth for no reason.
And don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak.
Right. And, I don't have a big dog in the Walhalla fight. You do.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we've lived there for 19 years.
Right.
And, raised 2 children there, raising 2 more children there. So, yeah, that's my husband's entire family lives there.
But
and has been there for generations. The flip side of it, too, is the misconceptions that they're going to take your land, which is not at all it. How can they take your land? They can't take
Kathy,
what's yours.
It's not about taking your land. It's about creating an opportunity to tell you to clean up your damn yard. Move your boat. Weed eat around that thing. Fix your porch. Let's make sure it's not an unsightly thing, because you got neighbors now. Nobody wants to live near a shithole. Well,
and it, God forbid, somebody, like you said, that it's a health hazard. But that's...
If you're going to be a farmer and you're going to have stacks and stacks of stuff set out, you need to do that away from people. You're not going to be able to have chickens in the city. But if you got a 1/8 acre lot, and you got 8 houses in an acre, well, you can't have that stuff anywhere.
Yeah.
And the people that choose to buy there, they realize that. And if not, they shouldn't have bought there, and they need to move on.
Yeah.
But Walhalla's got a lot of infrastructure problems, and the biggest one is that county eyesore that sits there beside the Lutheran church. I mean, you're talking about a nasty disaster just waiting to happen. The city needs to be suing the county to do something about it. If I had a house on Main Street and my house looked like that and I wasn't taking care of it, you could bet
well,
I'd
if
be
you had
getting...
a house, they would condemn it.
Right.
They would condemn it. If you had a house falling in and it had asbestos and trees growing out of the top of it, the county would condemn it.
They would be fining you until finally it got so high they could
condemn
take
it. Yeah, they would condemn it.
But that new courthouse is 10 years old. The old one's been sitting empty for decades. So why is the city not punishing the county for that eyesore? That's what I want.
Good question. I think that they were in hopes that someone would come along, because you know, in the beginning when they first moved out, you know, it had a lot of unique qualities that could have, had it been salvaged, you know, it could have been something interesting, like a hotel, or, you know, it could have been turned into something. But I think it's been let go so long that it is no longer salvageable.
Right, and it's, you know, that again, that's kind of like the Golden Corners Commerce Park. All these things that the county does, they wait and they wait and they wait. Sewer South was a 40-year dream of somebody's. The reason it was a dream for 40 years is because no one else believed in it, and they still don't. And that's why it's going to be a sewer to nobody.
Yeah.
But the county, Oconee County, has had so many failed opportunities because people don't have the gumption to get it done.
Yeah.
And they want
Yeah,
to bring
there's-
in big industry to a place that don't got the gumption to get it done. That's why it goes to Spartanburg. That's why it goes to Columbia.
Well,
Don't come here.
Well, and the thing of it is you know, here again, going back to not wanting to grow, if you don't have the amenities that big industry wants, they're going to move on to the place that does. They're going to move on to the counties that do. They're going to go to Pickens. They're going to go to Anderson. They're going to go to Greenville. They're going to go to Spartanburg because they have the things that big companies want.
Right. And you know, we're relying on this economic alliance group, and all they're doing is stealing money. Where is the ethics in that organization?
You got me.
Mm.
I don't.
I mean, then
I don't
they just put
see-
that old girl in jail.
I don't know the ins and outs of what happened there. I still am baffled that,
But that's the
and you
that's
know,
the organization.
taking something, and I'm going to throw this out here. Taking something is wrong. It's always wrong. Whether it's a stick of gum, whether it's, you know, whether it's $1 million. But it blows my mind that $1.8 billion can go missing, and that man never sees a set of handcuffs. But they will spend more money prosecuting this woman for misuse of a credit card. They will spend more money prosecuting her and clogging up an already overburdened court system. And yet this guy, $1.8 billion, and he has not been arrested.
But-
I mean, and to me, it's the disparity between a woman and a man. You know, to me that it's
well, if
you know, a county employee and a state employee, you know, just there's so many things to compare, and it happens time and time again because I always feel like, and we could go back through, and it would be an interesting podcast to do, to show where time and time again there's usually someone else involved. There's usually, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but a lot of times you'll see someone get thrown under the bus when there's lots of people involved, or other people new, or,
absolutely.
you know,
But that economic alliance embezzlement thing is not the first. I mean, there was the sheriff's office, $500,000 go missing.
yeah,
The fire departments had money go missing, you know, whether it was in Walhalla or Holly Springs or wherever. There is so much corruption in local government. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
and here again, I
If we had that money back, we wouldn't need to be getting bonds and grants and stuff. We could probably pay for ourselves. People quit stealing the money.
well, grants, here again, grants are, you know, grants are grants, and that's one of those things, if we don't take advantage of those, some other place will.
Right,
I believe in those.
But that's the only way we can get our tax money back.
Well, yeah, it's like getting our money back.
And you know, in Oconee County and South Carolina has done a really good job of getting more money back than they ever put in.
Yeah,
You know, 2023, 2024, it was said that for every tax dollar that a South Carolinian paid in, the state of South Carolina was getting $3.51 back.
right.
So we're doing a great job at spending everybody else's money, or taking it, whichever one you want, because it don't look like it's being spent in Oconee County.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We did get FEMA money.
Yeah, got a lot
We
of
did do
FEMA
that.
money.
We did do that.
And ARPA money, we had a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of FEMA, I saw that Sarah Sanders out there in Arkansas asked for some help after the last bout of tornadoes, and FEMA didn't come.
Right. And they didn't come. They've been turned down in Asheville or in North Carolina, and they've been turned down in Georgia. Haven't heard if McMaster asked for anything else. I'll have to look that up.
You know,
It would be interesting to see if they were, but it was really funny after there was all the dramatic scene, you know, because when everything was still in crisis, and they were begging people not to visit, not to be sightseeing and gawking, that they made such a big scene for him to come, and all these promises were made. And then when North Carolina was like, you know, we still need help, and they got turned down. And the same with Georgia, because it's still torn up. They still need help, and they've been turned down. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, oh yeah, you're on your own. Do it yourself.
It's just unbelievable. You know, people want small government, but then when we have smaller government and those things aren't there, it's crisis.
Well, I mean, small government, but you know, a natural disaster is a natural disaster. You have a need. You know.
Right.
What is that? I mean, they didn't ask for a hurricane, and who could anticipate a hurricane in the Appalachian Mountains? I mean,
it's a 100-year deal. You know. It really
yeah,
is.
it's a once in a lifetime thing.
So speaking of once in a lifetime, Limestone College, 160 years old.
179.
179 years
Yeah.
old. Gone. Closed.
They decide, yeah. Board of Trustees decided they're just going to shut the doors. They got like $1 million in donations. They needed $6 million, which leads me to wonder, you know, why can't they come up with money? You look at Clemson and you look at USC, and of course they're state supported. They just have money hand over fist. Like hand over fist for this or that. You know, Clemson's constantly building new facilities for this or that. You know, and we look at other things. And I was just saying, and it's, you know, not necessarily related. Look at the government bailouts for private companies, just millions upon millions, and no one could come up with $6 million to keep 179-year-old institution open.
It's a shame, but
mind blown.
But I guess that everything comes about and everything goes away.
Yes, but
I think that we're going to see an era here soon where a lot of these institutions fall.
We're living in the dumbing down of America, where people do not value education for whatever reason. So I mean, yeah, as the kids say, that tracks. You know, what? I mean, it's just, and what are you going to do with that facility? You've got an entire campus. What with that now? I mean,
well, it'd probably be no different than these factories that shut down.
I mean, it's such waste.
But if you got a 200-year-old building, you got to think about the maintenance and the upkeep of all of that, and to keep the value where it should be. It costs a whole lot of money, and I would say that to run that college is going to cost a lot more than $6 million a year.
Right, but that's just what they needed. I don't know.
So, but it's like there was a Navy base in West Virginia that I was stationed at, and I was there in the late '90s, and by 2005, I think they sold it, or they closed it, and were trying to sell it, and it has been for sale since 2005, with no maintenance and no upkeep. It's just an abandoned complex. I mean, it's got a barracks, it's got a grocery store, a gym, swimming pools. It's got a recreation facility, like 9 or 10 cabins. It's got a community. It's got base housing. All of that was for sale. The whole shooting match was for sale in the mountains of West Virginia for like $1.5 million.
Talk about government waste.
You know, and the only people I think that were looking at it were like right-wing extremists and MS-13. They're trying to build a camp, and of course they wouldn't sell it to folks like that. But you know, some nudist colony might come and get it. But when big places like that fall, they just become abandoned, and you'll be graffiti and homelessness, and it's just
The courthouse on Main Street.
just like the courthouse on Main Street. Yeah.
I mean, it's just
well,
shameful.
All right, I'm starting to get depressed, so we won't talk about that no more. Flagpole lots and 50-foot right-of-ways. That seems to be a huge topic now at the Planning Commission. We all know that the Planning Commission will give a recommendation to the council, and the council will be like, well, we'll do whatever we want to anyway. So it doesn't really matter what they decide. So it's the county council's where the target needs to be when we're talking about this. We talk about communities that put 8 houses per acre, 10 houses per acre, and you've got driveways that you can barely get a Prius down, and if something catches on fire or Papa has a heart attack and you got to park the ambulance on the street and walk 300 feet to get to Papa, and then you got to take him out in the elements to get him in the ambulance to get him somewhere. And let's face it, Oconee County is a retirement community. It's nothing but old people. When we ain't had but 10,000 students in the school system since the 70s, it's not growing. And anybody that does grow leaves. So it's all old people. And we're all getting older. And we got to think about ourselves, you know. And if the county passes these exemptions to the right-of-way and chokes that down, and Pawpaw dies or Mamaw dies, I hope them grandkids sue shit out of the county.
I think that this is you need to go with the human equation, not the pad your pocket equation. I mean, because what's going to happen is if they do this, then they're literally going to have a scenario where they can't get a fire truck down a driveway and they have to sit there and watch somebody's house burn and maybe them in it. I mean, then what? Then the county's going to be liable, or whoever makes this decision is going to be liable.
But you know, they're like, well, whoever bought the house, that's their problem. Well, you know,
you don't know that. The average person out shopping for a house does not know that.
Well, but here's the thing: the average person out shopping for a house has an intrinsic amount of trust in the government and the locality that they make good and wise decisions, so that when they look down that driveway, they go, it's kind of thin, but there's no way that the county would have passed an ordinance that would have made my driveway so thin that I can't get a fire truck or something down here. They're not going to think about that because they think that the county council
They're thinking about,
was
that
doing
house
the right
is
thing.
pretty. What a view. I love this place. They're not thinking about a fire truck.
But they're not thinking about that because they put that trust in the system that we're not going to do something that would cause harm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they think that they're safe.
Right. Well,
Right.
this is a brand new build. There's no way in America in 2025 that they would build something that would cause
That's going to kill
problems.
me. Yeah.
That's why we have building codes. That's why we have standards. That's why we have these
Right.
ordinances, is to keep something that was happening in the 50s from happening today.
Right.
And now we're going to be so stupid and so eager to chase money because of whatever developer says, oh man, I could get 2 extra houses here on this peninsula. If we could just narrow that driveway enough, I could get 2 or 3 more houses here. Well, that's bullshit.
They're
really.
talking about like 20 feet. Like, seriously, what is 20 feet? Like, get a tape measure and talk about what you can actually do with 20 feet. Well, I mean, you can turn a fire truck around, you can get an ambulance through, but what can you realistically do with your property with 20 feet? I mean, are you going to have a barbecue, or are you going to have, I mean, what are you going to do with 20 feet in your driveway. What
Yeah, but these
what person is out there using the 20 foot of their driveway?
But it
I mean,
really comes down to this, and
who's hanging out in their driveway?
but it's not your driveway that is the real problem. It's the right of way for the road builds into these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Now, when I lived in San Antonio, I was on the board of directors for one of the largest HOAs in town, and there was one subsection of our neighborhood was a gated community, and it had narrower roads. Well, the county would not accept the responsibility for repaving the roads in that one community because they didn't meet the right-of-way standards. Now, the people that lived in that neighborhood were now on the hook, and the HOA was now on the hook for road maintenance in that area. So if the county does this and they narrow the right-of-ways for all those roads that go into, whatever that one of them new housing developments is down in Fairplay, well, the county will be like, well, our equipment can't get down that road, so we're not going to fix it. We're not going to maintain it. Now you've bought a house that you thought was in the country, in a neighborhood, and the county was taking care of things. Turns out that thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars is going to be your responsibility, and it's going to cause you to have to create an HOA to take care of it.
Well, maybe that's the objective.
Well, of course it's the objective, is to slough everything off on somebody else and the county not take responsibility for the things they're supposed to. Absolutely.
Well, and maybe that is maybe that's where some of this is headed. There's such development. I know that there are some of these lake communities that have paid for like their own emergency services.
Yeah, they sure have. Kiwi's got their own fire taxi.
Because they've said, you know what, forget it, we'll just pay for our own.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's where this is headed. We've got so much development and so much growth that's where it's going to go. Some of these neighborhoods are just going to be like, hey, we'll just do our own.
But what is the purpose of the county government?
Stir up hate and discontent? I don't know.
But what it should be the safety and protection of the citizens, right?
It should be. That's what it should be. To serve the people that live in the county. All 80,000+ of them. All of them. All of the residents. All of them. The ones that didn't vote. The ones that didn't vote for you. The people that live in the county. Every stinking one of them. Yeah. To serve them. Yeah. Much like the police, to protect and serve. And yeah.
Well, it's budget season. They're talking about the budget. I didn't get a chance to review what was said. I'm sure that they're going to take more money from schools, close the school.
Do you think they'll actually read the school budget this year? Because last year they didn't. They just signed off on it.
No, they read it this time because they're trying to take money out.
Yeah. Are you
for
sure?
another
pet
project.
Yeah.
Or
Sure?
they're just going to take money because they can. But then the school system will close the school because they can, and then put that right back on the back of the council, which is what it is. It's okay to pay taxes and have nice things. We don't need to pay ridiculous taxes and have dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But it needs to be fair, it needs to be equitable, and we demand certain basic services, period.
Yeah. I think so.
Well, let's call it a day. It's good seeing y'all. I'm glad y'all got to see us. Tell your friends, like and share. And it may be one or two segments, so go back and find the ones you missed.
And let us know what you want to hear about.
Yeah, tell us. Tell us how we're doing. All right. Bye.